tour, Sharon, because they are fucking trouble. Big time trouble. Nobody would listen to me.
How did you know they were trouble?
Because I've been around as long as I have. You know?
Right. You know all these guys.
Yeah, and I just...
Why did they have a problem with Ozzy?
Jealous.
That's true.
Jealous.
You got it. You've done it all.
Jealous.
Don't put them on the tour, Sharon. They're trouble. That's the sort of warning whispered across dressing rooms and echoed in late-night phone calls. The kind of advice that passes between those who know what true power looks like in the music business. For decades, Sharon Osbourne has been the woman artist's fear, the one publicists blame, and the manager they secretly wish they had on their side. Her name isn't just a byword for control and controversy. It's become shorthand for a very particular brand of ruthlessness, one that's built empires, broken bands, and forced the world to watch, even when they're not sure if what they're seeing is heroism or villainy. At first glance, it's hard to believe this all started with one woman's choice to abandon safety for chaos. In the late 1970s, when most in the business clung to the legacy of the past, Sharon Arden broke away from the shadow of her powerful father, music mogul Don Arden, to rescue the most unlikely of prospects, a rock star in ruins. Ozzy Osbourne, fired from Black Sabbath, tumbling down a spiral of addiction and hopelessness, never imagined anyone could rebuild not just his career, but his very life. Sharon stepped in, not as a wife in waiting, but as a chess master staring down a board where every move might mean survival or oblivion. The strategy was surgical. Sharon found new musicians willing to gamble on a fallen idol. She resurrected Ozzy's brand, demanded fresh record deals, slashed through contracts that didn't serve her vision, and set her husband on the road back to the top. If there was a door in the way, she kicked it open. Forgotten phone calls, cold shoulders, and endless nights of tension were all part of the plan. She wasn't chasing gratitude, only results. In her own words, "I have to know more than anyone. I have to be stronger than anyone." That wasn't bravado. It was a map for survival in a business that would eat you alive if you blinked. While Sharon's tactics led to epic revivals and fortunes, every win came at a cost, and the trail of bodies left behind grew with each step forward. No tale captures this divide better than the saga of Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, the musicians whose creative fingerprints are all over Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, albums that would define a generation of heavy metal. These records rocked stadiums and turned Ozzy into a solo superstar. But as the spotlight grew hotter, Daisley and Kerslake felt their share of recognition and royalties shrinking, their names quietly erased from history and replaced by a story that always spotlighted only one man, Ozzy Osbourne. As bitterness deepened, friendships soured into lawsuits. By the early 2000s, Daisley and Kerslake demanded justice in court, credit, royalties, acknowledgement for their artistry. The rock world braced for drama. But Sharon didn't simply let lawyers fight it out. Instead, she dropped a bombshell. Without warning, she ordered the 2002 reissues of those legendary albums to be re-recorded, replacing Daisley's bass and Kerslake's drums. The official story? It was just business. The reality? People across the industry, from journalists to fans, saw it as deliberate erasure, payback for daring to defy her authority. The backlash was volcanic. Hardcore fans compared the new versions to soulless copies. Critics called the act ruthless revisionism. Daisley and Kerslake were robbed of not just money, but a place in music's core archives. To many, Sharon's move drew a line in the sand. Opposition meant obliteration, not negotiation. Even when Ozzy, in his own memoir, later admitted he hadn't known the details, that Sharon had made those key decisions, the larger question remained. Was she the villain, or was she simply the only one willing to do whatever needed doing so Ozzy could remain immortal? Yet that fight was just an opening act in the Sharon Osbourne playbook. Her approach, a cocktail of ambition, defiance, and absolute control, drew the brightest and most combustible stars on Earth, close enough to ignite new disasters. When she took over management for the Smashing Pumpkins in 1999, the business whispered, "Trouble ahead." The Pumpkins, led by Billy Corgan, were no strangers to fragmentation. Arguments over artistic direction had splintered the band repeatedly. Many expected Sharon's take-charge methods would bring order. Instead, it brought open war. The internal clash reached legendary proportions. Sharon reportedly tried to steer the band toward a more radio-friendly, marketable image, clashing with Corgan's stubbornly alternative, offbeat vision. A dust-up over the gothic look of a music video pushed things to the brink. Sharon called it bizarre and unmarketable. Corgan refused to back down. Days later, Sharon publicly resigned, labeling Corgan impossible, childish. Industry insiders watched, wide-eyed, as mutual insults flew through the press and emails leaked private accusations about ego and sabotage. The split became an industrial divorce that left both camps bruised, proof that Sharon never hesitated to make a dramatic exit if she couldn't bend the situation to her will. If you thought drama was limited to backstage spats, you haven't seen Ozfest 2005. The lineup was meant to be a thunderclap, a blend of metal's giants highlighted by Iron Maiden. What unfolded instead became a scandal as memorable as any music ever played there. During their headline set, Iron Maiden encountered repeated microphone cuts, a hostile crowd pelting them with eggs and bottle caps, and mounting tension so thick it felt dangerous. Whispers backstage painted a single mastermind, Sharon. The reason? Bruce Dickinson's public jabs at the Osbournes' reality TV show. To many, Sharon's power play was a message. Cross me, and your spotlight becomes a firing line. Rather than offering apologies, Sharon seized the microphone and threw fuel on the fire. "We pay them every single cent they ask, and all we get is disrespect," she declared, slicing the murky air with disdain. Fans were split. Some cheered her audacity. Others recoiled at what they saw as petty vengeance. Dickinson, undeterred, waved the British flag as audience chaos raged, refusing to leave the stage or let the sabotage rob fans of their show. For many, that concert symbolized the best and worst of rock. Resilience facing sabotage, egos clashing in full view. Iron Maiden's team blasted Sharon as dangerous, criminal, and cowardly, while unaffiliated artists saw the festival as ground zero for rock's most toxic drama. And her reputation only grew. Ask around the industry, and you'll hear grizzled legends repeat stories with the same combination of awe and resentment. Dave Mustaine, never one for subtlety, announced Sharon's management style as outright manipulation, not professional conduct. Keith Richards, in an infamous interview, said, "She's Wall Street in a leather jacket," and suggested that what made Sharon chilling was her complete lack of sentimentalism. Sharon wasn't one of them. She was the accountant in a room of anarchists, the person who turned every act of rebellion into carefully tallied receipts. This outsider status oddly never made Sharon weaker. If anything, it shielded her. Critics saw her as immune. Why bother challenging someone who seemed to relish every feud, every accusation? Axl Rose joked, Sharon would resurrect Ozzy just to sell one more shirt. And the world laughed, but there was a quiet, cringing truth behind the gag. The Ozzy brand became a never-ending legacy tour, each return to the stage a test of will versus mortality, with Sharon holding the keys and counting the ticket sales. And when the lights of reality TV beckoned, Sharon made sure to seize center stage, rewriting her public image in ways even her critics hadn't expected. The Osbournes, which hit MTV in 2002, tore down the curtain. Instead of a howling rock icon, viewers got an Ozzy who was sometimes foggy, grumpy, or lost, while Sharon loomed sharp, organized, unfazed by the chaos. Instead of darling or husband, her instructions to Ozzy played out as unvarnished commands. "Speak into the mic, they can't hear you," she'd say, their domestic quirks transformed into headline fodder, the wildest years whittled down to one-liners and awkward silences on America's living room TVs. The show's secret was never about family or love, but power. Sharon crafted every detail, deciding who got screen time, how her children were presented, and when the narrative needed more tension. Ozzy's bumbling became entertainment, Sharon's command, the pivot. Industry insiders would later describe the Osbournes not as a rock docuseries, but a power experiment, a show where Sharon was always the director, producer, and lead. Even Ozzy's memory lapses, often painful to watch, became gold in her hands. The image was clear. Sharon decided what stayed, what went, and who played which role. Ozzy might have been the legend, but Sharon was the legend maker. And her reach was not limited to the house or the band. On UK television, Sharon became a feared judge on The X Factor, where her barbed comments and icy put-downs became legend. When confronted by Danny Minogue, Sharon famously ignored decorum, declaring Minogue had been hired for her looks and contributed nothing to the music world. The data point? Conflict equals ratings. No one left a Sharon argument unwounded, except Sharon herself. Throughout it all, public forums like Reddit and social media chronicled Sharon's ongoing role as a rock and roll lightning rod. Debates raged between fans and critics alike. Some likened her to a Star Wars villain. Others called her a genius for transforming Ozzy from a niche hero to an MTV and talk show superstar. In fan forums, the question is endless. Is Sharon saving Ozzy from himself? Or just marching him out for another payday, even as age and illness stalk his every step? Some say Sharon's villain role lets Ozzy keep playing the fool, a strategic mask over a deeper, more complex dynamic. The headlines never stopped. In 2025, at what was meant to be a nostalgia-filled Black Sabbath farewell show, Sharon dropped another bomb, pulling a band from the lineup last minute, citing the manager's greed as the reason. Her public statement, "Not the time to cash in," dared the opposing manager to argue on stage. The media had their field day, and the debate burned hotter than ever. Was it principle, pragmatism, or just classic Sharon showmanship, knowing full well that drama drives ratings, sales, and legacy? What's undeniable is the toll this power has exacted. Those closest to the Osbourne axis have spoken out with a bitterness that still smolders. Bob Daisley calls Sharon's moves a lesson in erasure. Lee Kerslake described being cut from album reissues as losing part of my life. Producer Max Norman summed it up. Sharon shafted them. Other managers whisper about sleepless nights and impossible negotiations, knowing Sharon would walk away or torch the partnership rather than share control. Even fans admit no matter how much they argue about Sharon, they can't look away. But there's another side to this story, the side only insiders admit when the cameras are off. Surviving the music business takes more than luck or talent. Most managers who tried the softer route vanished before leaving a mark, or left only tragedy in their wake. Sharon kept Ozzy alive, relevant, and despite all doubts, on top. Her methods aren't romantic, but in a world where sentimentality gets you steamrolled, maybe that's exactly why it works. In the end, the Sharon Osbourne story is a lesson in what happens when one person refuses to give up control over legacy, over money, over history itself. No matter what scandal erupts, she finds a way to spin it into opportunity. Whether wielding the whip at home, reworking history in the studio, or charging into the fray at a festival, she keeps eyes glued to the stage. Each time a critic calls her cold, she doubles down. Every time a rival tries to upstage her, she turns the tables. Ask yourself, is Sharon Osbourne the most hated woman in rock, or the secret architect of its persistence and continued reinvention? Maybe the answer depends on whose story you believe. For every bandmate left behind, there's a chart-topping hit that wouldn't have existed without her ruthless oversight. For every feud, there's a crisis averted, an addiction fought, a comeback made possible. What no one can deny is that Sharon Osbourne has rewritten the rules for what it means to survive and thrive in music's wildest, darkest corners. She keeps the circus running. She scripts the drama, and when the time comes for another show, another outrage, she'll be there, daring anyone to take her crown. The spectacle isn't going anywhere. Neither is she. And rock and the world will keep watching, waiting for her next move, because in the glare of Sharon's spotlight, nobody ever really quits, and no finale is ever truly the end.